Uranium this, uranium that. I didn't think we'd still be using something like uranium after all these years. But we are. Now I'm stuck on a frozen hellhole with no star to orbit because of it. And, oh, there are alien ice zombies here too. Welcome to Mining Outpost Frost 7, where dreams of glorious combat go to die. My name's Juan Garcia, and I'm starting to think being a third-generation Treffin Marine isn't all it's cracked up to be. Keep your helmet sealed, rookie. Sergeant Walsh's voice crackles through my comm as I step off the transport. The blast of cold hits me like a physical wall, even through my thermal suit. The landing pad is lit by massive floodlights that cast harsh shadows across the ice, making every ridge and crevice look like it's hiding one of them. The things, the zombies, whatever they are. Yes, Sergeant, I snap back, double-checking my seal. Back home on Treffia, they tell stories about Frost 7, but somehow they always leave out the part about how it feels like your eyeballs might freeze solid if you look into the wind too long. A veteran Marine trudges past us, his armor covered in a strange bluish ice that I've never seen before. He's got his helmet off despite the cold, taking deep breaths of the thin air. When he notices me staring, he gives me a grim smile. "You'll understand soon enough, kid." His face is weathered, with that 1,000-yard stare they all seem to get up here. The outpost rises before me like a metal mountain, its reinforced walls disappearing into the darkness above. Floodlights, defense turrets, and sensor arrays create a technological jungle across its surface. The constant drone of mining operations vibrates through my boots. Uranium extraction never stops, not even during attacks. "Move it, Garcia," Walsh barks. "You can admire the scenery when you're dead." I join the line of new arrivals hustling toward the main airlock. There are 12 of us, fresh faces, all Treffin Marines. Being the best means being sent to the worst places, or so my father always said. I wonder if he knew about this place when he pushed me to enlist. The airlock cycles and we're rushed through decontamination. That's when I hear it for the first time, a sound like ice cracking, but deeper, more rhythmic, almost like breathing. "So that's them," says a voice beside me. It's another rookie, Armstrong, trying to sound casual and failing. They're always out there, watching. "Cut the chatter," Walsh interrupts. "You'll have plenty of time to get acquainted with our local wildlife. Right now, you need to..." The alarm cuts him off. Not the usual shift change buzzer I'd been briefed about, but something more urgent. Red lights start flashing throughout the corridor. "Perimeter breach in Section 7, a voice announces over the general comm. "All combat personnel to defensive positions." Walsh's expression shifts from annoyed to predatory. "Well, looks like you'll get your introduction early. Welcome to Frost 7, Marines. Try not to die on your first day." "Sergeant," I start. "What exactly are we dealing with here? I mean, where did they come?" "First rule of Frost 7, rookie," Walsh cuts me off sharply. "Don't ask questions about them. They're here, we're here, and that's all you need to know. Been that way for 50 years, it'll be that way 50 more. As we double-time it toward the armory, I catch glimpses through the reinforced windows, shadows moving across the ice, too fast for their size. The floodlights catch something that might have once been human, its flesh a translucent blue, before it disappears again into the darkness. My grandfather used to say that being a Treffin Marine meant being ready for anything. Looking at those shapes in the darkness, I'm starting to think even he never imagined anything like this. The armory door hisses open, and Walsh starts barking orders for loadouts. Outside, that ice-cracking sound is getting louder, and now I can hear something else with it. A high, keening wail that makes my teeth hurt. I check my rifle's charge for the third time, an old Treffin habit. The weight feels good in my hands, familiar. But as I look around at the grim faces of the veterans gearing up alongside us, I can't shake one thought. I really didn't sign up for this. 3 weeks in and you still look like you're trying to solve a puzzle, Garcia, Corporal Rivera says, her breath freezing instantly in the thin air. She's got her helmet off again, like most of the veterans do during quiet moments. Something about needing to feel the battlefield, whatever that means. I'm on guard duty at Mining Platform C, watching the massive drills punch deeper into the planet's frozen core. The uranium readings here are off the charts, which means the attacks are usually worse. The zombies always seem more aggressive around the richest deposits. Eyes up, not down, Rivera reminds me, gesturing at the darkness beyond our floodlit perimeter. The ice won't tell you anything useful, but it'll get you killed trying to figure it out. She's right. I've caught myself staring at the strange patterns in the ice too often lately. The way it seems to pulse sometimes, like it's breathing, the weird blue veins that run through it near the mining sites. But asking questions about stuff like that is a good way to get stuck on latrine duty for a month. A grinding sound echoes from below as the drills hit a new deposit. The vibrations travel up through my boots, setting my teeth on edge. Almost immediately, the motion sensors start lighting up. Right on schedule, Rivera sighs, sealing her helmet. They always get pissy when we hit a new vein. Armstrong, Scotch. Get your asses in position. I check my rifle's charge out of habit as shadows start moving in the darkness. The floodlights catch glimpses of them, translucent blue flesh, distorted limbs that are too long and bend in the wrong directions, faces frozen in expressions that stopped being human a long time ago. Remember, Rivera says over the comm, short bursts, center mass. Don't waste ammo on headshots. They don't work like in the vids. And for fuck's sake, keep your helmets sealed this time. The first wave hits just as the shift change alarm sounds. Perfect timing as usual. The mining crews are vulnerable during the changeover and the zombies know it. They might not be smart, but they've learned patterns over the decades. I squeeze off a burst as 3 of them sprint across the ice toward us. The rounds punch through their frozen flesh, shattering it like glass, but they keep coming. They always keep coming. Contact left, Armstrong shouts. Big bastards. I swing my rifle left and feel my stomach drop. These ones are at least 8 feet tall, their bodies twisted and swollen by whatever turns humans and aliens alike into these things. They're using the smaller ones as cover, letting them soak up our fire. Focus on the runners, Rivera orders. Let the turrets handle the big ones. The automated defense turrets open up, their heavy rounds turning the larger zombies into clouds of frozen meat. But for every one we drop, 2 more emerge from the darkness. The mining crews are only halfway to the airlocks. Garcia, Armstrong, drop smoke on the left approach. Rivera's voice is steady despite the chaos. Scotch with me, we're clearing a path for the miners. Farther up the narrow trail, Garcia inhales. The smoke grenades pop with a sad little wheeze in the thin air, but the thermoreactive chemicals still do their job, creating a wall of purple haze. The zombies hate running blind, and the left flank attack falters. That's when I hear it, the sharp crack of a faceplate breaking. Armstrong's taken a hit, a glancing blow from one of the bigger ones, but it's enough. His helmet's integrity is compromised. Don't you dare, Rivera shouts. But Armstrong's already doing it, pulling his helmet off completely. The bitter cold hits him immediately, but he's grinning like a madman as he opens fire one-handed. I get it now, he yells over the general comp. I finally fucking get it. Get your helmet back on, you idiot. I try to reach him, but another wave of runners separates us. You can see them better this way. Armstrong's voice is becoming slurred as the cold affects him. They're beautiful in a way, like ice sculptures that the sound he makes next will haunt my dreams for months. One of the big ones bursts through the smoke screen, catching him mid-sentence. There's a crack that might be bones or might be the ice beneath him, and Armstrong disappears into the darkness beyond the floodlights. Rivera's cursing steadily in 3 languages as we fall back to the airlock. The mining crews are almost inside and the defense turrets are starting to overheat. We've held them off long enough. This time. Hours later, after the attack is over and the bodies have refrozen to the ground, I help the recovery team look for Armstrong. We find his rifle and parts of his armor, but nothing else. Rivera just shakes her head when I ask if we should keep searching. Rule 2 of Frost 7, she says, pulling off her helmet to light a cigarette in the thin air. Don't look for the ones they take. Just accept that sometimes people disappear into the dark. Been that way for 50 years, I'll be that way 50 more. I want to argue, want to demand that we keep looking, but I can already feel it happening. That subtle shift in my mind. The beginning of that 1,000-yard stare all the veterans have. Armstrong is gone, the miners are safe, and the drills are already running again. Just another day on Frost 7. 6 weeks in, and I've already learned to hate the graveyard shift. Not because it's dark. It's always dark on Frost 7, but because that's when they hit us hardest. Something about the way the temperature drops even lower during these hours drives them into a frenzy. Sector 4. Good. I see it, I respond, tracking the shadows with my rifle. After Armstrong, Scotch, and I got closer, nothing bonds people like watching a friend disappear into the darkness. 3 runners. 2 big ones behind them. Rivera's voice cuts in. All units hold position. Let them come to us. Save your ammo for... And the explosion cuts her off. A massive fireball erupts from mining platform E, the concussion wave knocking us all back. Alarms start screaming throughout the complex. Status report, Walsh barks over the command channel. What the hell just hit us? They've never done this before, Rivera says, her voice tight. Some kind of concentrated attack on the drilling equipment. Multiple breaches detected. Sir! Thompson from Platform E. Primary coolant lines are ruptured. We're looking at a cascade failure if we don't get those pumps back online. Walsh's response is immediate. Rivera, take your squad and secure those coolant pumps. Everyone else, defensive positions. They're not getting any deeper into this facility. Sir. Garcia, Scotch, you're with me, Rivera orders. We move out immediately, our boots crunching on the ever-present ice. The path to Platform E is already becoming obscured as steam from the ruptured coolant lines freezes in the bitter air. Contact front! Scotch opens fire as shapes emerge from the frozen mist. I see immediately these aren't the usual runners. They're bigger, more heavily mutated. Their translucent flesh has a deeper blue tint, and they move with an unsettling purpose. Focus fire, Rivera shouts. Don't let them flank us. We pour rounds into the creatures, but they keep advancing, using the frozen coolant vapor for cover. One of them gets close enough for me to see its face, or what's left of it. The thing might have been alien or human once, but now it's just a maze of ice crystals growing through translucent flesh. A massive shape suddenly looms over Scotch. He manages to get off 2 shots before it grabs him. Without thinking, I rip off my helmet. The veterans are right, you can see them better this way, and empty my magazine into the creature's center mass. It explodes in a shower of frozen gore, dropping Scotch. I'm good, he gasps, scrambling back to his feet. But, what the hell? They've never been this organized. Less talking, more shooting, Rivera snaps, but I can hear the concern in her voice. This isn't normal, even by Frost 7 standards. We fight our way to the coolant control station. Thompson is there with 2 engineers, desperately trying to bypass the damaged systems. The room is filling with frozen vapor, and even through our suits, the cold is becoming unbearable. How long? Rivera asks. 10 minutes, Thompson replies without looking up. Maybe less. If these pumps don't come back online, the whole drilling platform goes critical. Garcia, Scotch, guard that door. Nothing gets through. Rivera moves to help Thompson, her experience with the facility's systems coming in handy. The next few minutes are a blur of gunfire and frost. The creatures keep coming, wave after wave. My trigger finger goes numb, even through the thermal gloves. Scotch takes a hit that cracks his armor, but keeps fighting. We're running low on ammo when Rivera finally shouts, "Pumps are back online! Fall back to secondary positions!" That's when the ceiling comes down. A massive section of ice and metal collapses, and something drops into the room with us. It's easily 12 feet tall, its body a nightmare of ice crystals and frozen flesh. Before any of us can react, it grabs Thompson and one of the engineers, crushing them together with a sickening crunch. "Fall back," Rivera screams. "Fall back now." We retreat, firing as we go. The massive creature follows, shrugging off our rounds like they're nothing. The second engineer panics, tries to run past it, and disappears into its grip with a scream that cuts off too quickly. We make it back to the main facility, sealing blast doors behind us. The thing hammers on them for a few minutes, then goes quiet. When we finally catch our breath, Rivera does a quick head count. 3 of us left from a team of 6. "Command, this is Rivera," she says into her comm. "Platform E is secure, pumps are operational, but we lost Thompson and both engineers. Some new type of hostile, bigger than anything we've seen before." Walsh's response is grim. "Understood. Get your team to medical for checkup, then report for debriefing. We'll need to adjust our defensive strategies." Later in the medical bay, Scotch looks at me. "You took your helmet off back there, during the fight." I nod, wincing as the medic treats my frostbitten face. "Yeah. Couldn't see them properly through the visor. Needed a clear shot." "Now you're getting it," Rivera says from the next bed. She's got her own helmet off, nursing a cup of something hot. "Sometimes you need to feel the cold to fight it properly." Been that way for 50 years. Scotch and I finish with her. We'll be that way 50 more. She grins, but it doesn't reach her eyes. We all know we'll be back out there in 6 hours, watching the darkness for movement. The drills never stop, which means we can't stop either. Just another shift on Frost 7, where the night shift is all night, every night, forever. 3 months on Frost 7, and I've developed a routine. Wake up, gear check, breakfast of synthetic proteins, patrol briefing, 12 hours of watching the darkness, dinner of different synthetic proteins, sleep, repeat. The only variation is where and when the zombies attack and how many friends I lose. "Your turn for a helmet break," Scotch says, nudging me as we man our position on Platform B. He's already got his off, ice forming in his beard. "Been 4 hours since your last one." The veterans insist we take regular breaks from our helmets when things are quiet. They say it keeps you sharp, helps you remember what you're fighting for. Really, I think we all just got tired of seeing the world through filters and displays. I unlock my helmet seal with practiced moves, letting the brutal cold hit my face. The air is thin up here, but after 3 months my lungs have adapted. You can last about 15 minutes before the cold and lack of oxygen start affecting your judgment. The trick is knowing when to put the helmet back on. Contact Rivera calls casually over the comm. The usual suspects at the usual time. She's right, it's shift change at Platform B, and right on schedule they're coming. We've gotten good at predicting their attacks. They're drawn to mining activity like moths to a flame, especially during worker rotations. "Standard response," Walsh's voice crackles through the comm. "No heroes today, people." I seal my helmet back on and take position. The floodlights catch the first wave, regular runners, nothing like the big ones we saw at Platform E last month. Those haven't shown up since, which makes everyone nervous. On Frost 7, new things never just disappear. Remember when this used to be scary? Scotch asks as we open fire. Our shots are precise, economical. 3 months of constant combat have made us efficient, if nothing else. Still is, I reply, dropping 2 runners with a single burst. Just a different kind of scary now. The attack follows the usual pattern. They probe our defenses, lose a few dozen of their number to our automated turrets, then try to overwhelm a single section. Today they're focusing on the northeastern perimeter, probably because the wind is strongest there and messes with our targeting. Aye. Rivera, Walsh cuts in. Take your squad and reinforce Section 8. Looks like they're building up for something big. Rivera, we move out immediately. No acknowledgement needed. 3 months have taught us that hesitation gets you killed. The ice crunches under our boots as we navigate the maze of pipes and support structures that keep the mining platforms operational. That's when I see it, a new pattern in the ice. The veins of blue that usually run through it are pulsing faster than normal, almost like, Garcia? Rivera's sharp voice snaps me out of it. What's the first rule? I stop and turn to her. Don't ask questions, I respond automatically. Been that way 50 years. The explosion catches us mid-movement. Not as big as the Platform E incident, but enough to throw us off our feet. When I get up, spitting blood from where I bit my tongue, I realize we're cut off from the main facility. Status, Walsh demands over the comm. Squad intact, Rivera reports. But they've collapsed the support bridge. We're stranded on the northeastern platform. A screech cuts through the thin air, that horrible sound they make when they're about to charge en masse. Through the swirling ice particles, I can see hundreds of shapes moving toward us. Hold position, Walsh orders. Relief team is en route. Defense turrets are still operational in your sector. Scotch laughs, a sound with no humor in it. Just another day at the office, right? We set up a defensive perimeter, back to back. The platform is stable enough, but it's isolated now, a metal island in a sea of ice and darkness. The mining equipment below us continues its endless work, drilling deeper into the planet's core, oblivious to our situation. Save your ammo, Rivera advises as the horde approaches. Let them get close, make every shot count. I check my charge indicator, 73%. Should be enough, has to be enough. The first wave hits us like a frozen tsunami. The defense turrets chew through dozens of them, but more keep coming. We fire in controlled bursts, dropping them one after another, but they're getting closer. Anyone else miss basic training? Scott shouts over the sounds of combat. You know, when the worst thing we had to worry about was Sergeant Hayes and his obsession with clean boots? Less talking, Hefera orders, but I can hear the smile in her voice. More shooting. Hours pass like minutes in the chaos of battle. We lose the first defense turret when they manage to clog its barrel with their frozen bodies. The second goes down when its power cell finally gives out. The third is still firing, but is starting to make a worrying whining sound. My charge indicator reads 12% when we hear the beautiful sound of approaching engines. The relief team arrives in a heavily armored transport, cutting through the horde with mounted guns. Need a ride? The transport pilot's voice is thick with amusement. About time, Rivera responds. We were starting to think you'd stopped for coffee. The cleanup takes hours. The bodies of the fallen zombies are bulldozed into the darkness beyond the perimeter. They'll be frozen solid by morning. Just more obstacles in the endless ice field. Maintenance crews are already working on a replacement bridge because the mining never stops. Later in the mess hall, Walsh stops by our table. Good work out there. Platform B never stopped production, even with the bridge down. Corporate will be pleased. Rivera waits until he's gone before removing her helmet and lighting a cigarette. It's against regulations to smoke inside, but no one enforces that rule anymore, not after what we deal with outside. You know what the worst part is? Scotch asks, his helmet also off, despite the minor frostbite he'd suffered earlier. I'm actually getting used to this. All of it. The cold, the dark, the constant fighting. It's becoming normal. I look around the mess hall, at all the faces bearing that same 1,000-yard stare. Some of them have been here for years, decades even. They were here before me, they'll be here after me, holding the line against an enemy no one questions anymore. That's not the worst part, I say, removing my own helmet to feel the recycled air on my face. The worst part is that I'm starting to like it. Rivera just nods, exhaling smoke that freezes almost instantly in the artificially cold air of the facility. She doesn't need to say it. We all know the truth. This is our life now. This is Frost 7. Been this way 50 years. We'll be this way 50 more. Keep your helmet sealed, rookie. The words come automatically now, and I have to laugh at the irony of me being the one saying them. My helmet's off, of course. We've got 20 minutes until shift change, and the cold helps keep me alert. But sir, the new arrival protests, I saw you had yours. You'll earn your helmet breaks, Rivera cuts in. She's standing next to me on the observation platform, her own face exposed to the brutal cold. Until then, stay sealed, he says briskly, turning himself around to act as a guide to his companions. It's been 6 months since I arrived on Frost 7. The new batch of rookies looking up at us now remind me of myself, fresh-faced and full of questions. Most of them are Treffin Marines, like always. Our planet keeps sending its best to this frozen hell, and the ice keeps taking its share. Movement in Sector 3, Scotch reports from his position. His helmet's on. He lost his brake privileges for a week after getting sloppy during the last major attack. Looks like they're starting early today. They always get antsy when new meat arrives, Ribeiro observes, taking one last deep breath of the thin, freezing air before sealing her helmet. All right, rookies, time for your baptism. Remember your training and... The screen cuts her off. One of the new arrivals, some kid named Mitchell, just had his first real look at what we're fighting. A particularly large specimen had emerged into the floodlights, dragging something behind it, something that might have once been human. Focus up, I bark, falling easily into the veteran role. If you've got time to scream, you've got time to shoot. Standard formation, 5 meters spread. The rookies move into position, their training taking over despite their fear. I remember my first time seeing the ice zombies up close, how unreal they seemed. Now they're just part of the job, like equipment checks or shift rotations. Here they come, Rivera announces calmly. Regular runners first, big ones hanging back, same as it ever was. We open fire in practiced bursts. The veterans pick our shots carefully, conserving ammo, while the rookies spray and pray. They'll learn. The ones that survive always do. Sir? It's Mitchell again, his voice shaky but controlling it better now. Why do they look like that? What are they really? First rule of Frost 7, kid, Scotch replies before I can. Don't ask questions, been that way. 50 years. The rookies finish with him, having already heard the phrase dozens of times during orientation. We'll be that way 50 more. The battle falls into its familiar rhythm. The runners test our lines, looking for weak points. The larger ones hang back, waiting for an opening. Our defense turrets chew through the ones that get too close, their frozen bodies shattering like glass. Mitchell, Simeon, watch your left flank, Rivera shouts. Garcia, we've got climbers on platform D. I redirect my fire, catching 2 of the creatures as they scale the mining platform's support struts. They've gotten better at that lately, learning to use the facility's architecture against us. We adapt, they adapt. An eternal dance in the darkness. Gulad leak on platform C, Walsh's voice cuts through the comm chatter. Engineering team needs escort. On it, I respond. Scotch, you're with me. Rookies, stick with Rivera and keep the perimeter sealed. As we move through the facility, I catch glimpses of the new arrivals through the reinforced windows. Their movements are still stiff, uncertain. They haven't learned to read the ice yet, to feel the subtle vibrations through their boots that warn of approaching hostiles. "Remember when that was us?" Scotch asks, as we clear a path for the engineers. "Feels like another lifetime," I reply, dropping a runner that got too close. "Back when we still thought there'd be answers to all this." The engineering team works quickly while we provide cover. 6 months of constant attacks have made everyone efficient. You learn to do your job fast, or you don't survive to get better at it. "Garcia," Rivera's voice crackles through the comm. "Lost 2 rookies up here. Mitchell and Simeon didn't watch their flanks like I told them." I absorbed the news with a dull acceptance that would have horrified my younger self. "Bodies!" "Negative. They went over the edge, into the dark." Into the dark, our euphemism for the ones we don't find, the ones the ice takes. Better than thinking about the alternatives. Hours later, after the attack is over and the mining operations are back to full capacity, I find myself in the mess hall with the surviving rookies. Their eyes are different now. The beginning of that 1,000-yard stare we all share. "Does it get easier?" one of them asks. Zhang, I think his name is. I remove my helmet, feeling the artificial cold of the facility. We keep it cold inside to minimize the shock when we go out. "No," I tell him honestly, "but you get better at it. The ones that survive always do." Rivera joins us, lighting one of her precious cigarettes. The smoke freezes in elaborate patterns before dissipating. "You know what the veterans told me my first week here?" she asks the rookies. "They said, don't try to understand Frost 7, just survive it." The rookies nod, processing this. 2 empty chairs at their tables speak volumes about the cost of today's lessons. "More thing," I add, seeing the questions still burning in their eyes. "Stop looking for answers in the ice. Stop wondering why they attack, what they want, where they came from. The only thing that matters is that we're here, they're here, and the uranium keeps flowing. Because that's the way it's been," Scott starts. "For 50 years, we all finish. Veterans and rookies together. We'll be that way 50 more." Outside our reinforced walls, the darkness holds its secrets. The ice shifts and cracks, and distant shapes move in the eternal night. Just another day on Frost 7, where questions freeze before they're asked, and survival is the only answer that matters. They hit us during dinner. That's a first. 7 months of the same patterns, the same predictable attacks during shift changes and reactor cycling, and then they do this. The mess hall alarm catches half of us with our helmets off, food freezing solid on our trays. "Multiple breach points," Walsh's voice cuts through the chaos. "They're coming through platforms A, C, and E simultaneously." "That's not possible," Rivera mutters as we sprint to the armory. "They've never coordinated like this before." But they have. The security feeds show it clearly. Massive waves of hostiles breaching our perimeter from 3 directions at once. The automated defense turrets are overwhelmed, freezing up from the sheer number of bodies they're trying to process. "L squads fall back to secondary defense positions," Walsh orders. "Engineering teams, initiate Protocol 7. We are not losing those reactors." Protocol 7, flooding the outer platforms with superheated coolant to clear the hostiles. It's a desperate move, one that'll take days to clean up and cost us millions in lost mining time. Corporate's going to be pissed. "Garcia, Scotch, take your rookies and hold Platform C," Rivera directs. "I'll handle A with Walsh. Zhang, you're with me." I look at the 4 rookies assigned to my squad. They've lasted 2 weeks, which is better than most. Their helmets are properly sealed now. They've learned that much at least. "Stay tight, watch your flanks, and don't try to be heroes," I tell them as we move out. "Scotch, you've got point." The corridor to Platform C is already showing signs of damage. The reinforced walls are buckled in places, and there's that familiar blue ice starting to form around the seams. The mining equipment groans beneath us, the endless drills still pulling uranium from the planet's core, despite the chaos above. Contact front! Scotch opens fire as shapes emerge from a ruptured coolant line. The steam freezes instantly in the thin air, creating a ghostly curtain that the creatures move through like shadows. Hold the line, I order, picking my shots carefully. Don't let them flank us. But something's different about them today. They're moving with purpose, almost like they're following a plan. A group of runners sacrifices themselves to draw our fire, while larger ones work on widening a breach in the wall. "Sir?" one of the rookies asks in warning. "Above us." I look up just in time to see them dropping from the ceiling maintenance hatches. They've never used those before, never shown this kind of tactical thinking. "Fall back to the security doors," I command, but it's too late. They're behind us now too. We're cut off. "Garcia, report status," Walsh demands over the comm. "Surrounded on Platform C," I respond, dropping 2 runners with my last burst. No clear path to the security doors. 4 rookies still alive. Scotch is wounded. Static answers me. The comms are down. "Listen up," I tell my squad as we form a defensive circle. "Conservation of ammo is no longer a priority. Make noise, draw attention. The more of them we keep occupied here, the better chance the other platforms have." Scotch props himself against a support pillar, clutching his side where one of them managed to tear through his armor. "Just like old times, eh?" "Shut up and shoot," I tell him, but we share a grim smile through our faceplates. If this is it, at least we're going out fighting. The rookies are holding their own, which makes me proud. 2 weeks of constant combat have turned them into decent soldiers. Parker especially shows promise, picking her shots carefully like a veteran. Ours blur together. We lose Mason first. He gets too close to a breach in the wall and something pulls him through before we can react. Turner goes down, protecting Scotch from a particularly large hostile. Armstrong, no relation to the one I lost my first month, runs out of ammo and switches to his combat knife, taking 3 of them with him before the cold gets him. "Garcia!" Parker shouts suddenly. "The mining equipment!" I follow her gesture and see what she means. The massive drills are still operating and the vibrations are causing structural weakness in the platform above the creatures. "Touch, you thinking what I'm thinking?" He laughs, which turns into a cough. "We're gonna have to pay for the repairs, aren't we?" "If we survive, I'll split the cost with you." We redirect our fire to the support struts right where the drills are causing the most stress. It's a crazy plan, but this whole situation is crazy. The platform collapses with a screech of tortured metal, taking a good portion of the horde with it. The sudden change in pressure causes emergency bulkheads to slam down, sealing us off from the worst of the breach. "Datas?" I call out. "Alive?" Scotch manages. "Still here," Parker responds. 2 out of 4 rookies, better than I expected given the circumstances. We wait in the confined space between bulkheads, listening to the sounds of combat elsewhere in the facility. Our armor's environmental systems can keep us alive for hours, but the cold is still seeping in through Scotch's damaged suit. "Don't suppose anyone brought dinner with them?" Scotch jokes weakly. "Next time we get attacked during a meal, I'll remember to grab takeout," I tell him. Parker removes her helmet, her first time doing it in combat. "If we're going to freeze to death anyway, I want to see it coming," she explains. Smart kid, she's learning. The rescue team finds us 6 hours later. By then, Scotch is hypothermic but stable, Parker has earned her unofficial veteran status, and I've added 3 more names to the mental list of those the ice has taken. "Quite a mess you made," Rivera says as they cut through the bulkhead. She looks exhausted but alive. "Corporate's going to take this out of your pay for the next decade." "Bill me," I respond. "How are the other platforms?" "We held," she says simply. Lost a lot of good people, but we held. The uranium keeps flowing. Later, after medical has patched us up and engineering has started repairs, Walsh calls us all together. They're learning, he says bluntly, adapting, getting smarter. So we adapt too. Double watches, new security protocols, enhanced motion tracking. But the mission doesn't change. Because it's been this way, Rivera starts. For 50 years, we all finish. We'll be this way 50 more. But as I look at the reduced numbers in the mess hall, at the empty chairs and missing faces, I wonder if we can last another 50 years. Then I remember the first rule of Frost 7, don't ask questions. The mining equipment rumbles beneath our feet, already back to full operation. The darkness outside our walls holds its secrets, and we hold our positions. Just another day in this frozen hell we call home. Not long after that, and I find myself in yet another bind, thanks to yet another attack. This one was the worst yet. A team and I are sealed deep in the complex's inner workings, buying time and praying for our lives. Status report? I rasp into the comm, though I already know it's dead. 48 hours trapped in the maintenance tunnels beneath Platform D, and still no rescue. Scotch is stable, Parker responds, her voice hoarse from the thin air. She's got her helmet off again. We all do, conserving what little oxygen remains in our suit supplies. But he won't be running any marathons soon. Didn't plan to anyway, Scotch mumbles from his position against the frozen wall. The emergency patch on his suit is holding, but the cold has turned his wounded side into one massive bruise. Too damn cold for running. The maintenance tunnels weren't designed for long-term occupation. They're narrow, cramped, and poorly insulated. But after the massive attack that separated us from the main facility, they're all we've got. At least the mining equipment is still running above us. The vibrations tell us that much. Movement, Zhang whispers from his position near the junction. He's our only surviving rookie from the second wave of reinforcements that arrived last week. Big ones. They're searching the upper tunnels again. We hold our breath, listening to the heavy footsteps above. The creatures have been systematically searching for us ever since they cut us off. They're getting smarter, more thorough. It's not just about attacking anymore, they're hunting. Save your ammunition, I remind everyone, though they already know. We're down to our last few magazines each. They can't search forever. Want to bet? Scott tries to laugh, but ends up coughing instead. The sound echoes in the tunnel, and we all freeze. What? The footsteps above. Pause. Nobody move, I breathe. Minutes crawl by like hours. The temperature in the tunnel has dropped another few degrees. Our suit diagnostics gave up trying to measure it precisely a day ago. Ice crystals form in the air with each exhaled breath, creating tiny clouds that sparkle in our dimmed helmet lights. What deep thoughts they are, we never get beyond the concept. Finally, the footsteps move on. They're learning our patterns, Parker observes, her face pale from cold and exhaustion. They know we have to stay near the machinery for warmth. She's right. The mining equipment generates just enough heat to keep the tunnels above lethal temperatures. Barely. We've already lost feeling in most of our extremities. Remember basic training, Zhang asks suddenly, when they told us Treffined Marines were the best of the best? We're the best, Scotch mumbles. That's why they sent us to this frozen hellhole. Someone's got to keep the uranium flowing. Speaking of flowing, I cut in. Status check on water recyclers. Everyone checks their suit systems. The news isn't good. Another 12 hours at most before dehydration becomes a serious problem. We can eat ice to survive longer, but that'll just speed up hypothermia. Tell me a story, Scotch says suddenly. Something to keep my mind off the cold. Once upon a time, Parker starts, her voice dripping with sarcasm. A bunch of idiots signed up to be Treffined Marines because they thought it would be glamorous. We share a quiet laugh at that. Even Zhang cracks a smile. Haha. Remember Armstrong? I ask, thinking back to my first month here. My first rookie casualty. Took his helmet off mid-fight because he thought he saw something beautiful in the ice. We all see it eventually, Scotch says softly. That's why we take the helmet breaks. Something about this place gets in your head, makes you want to look at it with your own eyes, no matter how stupid that is. A new sound interrupts our reminiscing, the deep, resonant crack of ice shifting. But this is different from the usual noises. This is closer. They're in the lower tunnels, Zhang reports, his voice steady despite the fear. Must have finally figured out the maintenance access points. Options? Parker asks, already checking her weapon. I consider our situation. We're trapped between the upper and lower search parties. Our ammo is low, our suits are failing, and Scotch can barely move. The mining equipment drones on above us, oblivious to our predicament. We hold position, I decide. They want us to run, to waste energy and make mistakes. We hold here, where we at least have some cover and a heat source. No one argues. We've all been on Frost 7 long enough to know that panic equals death. Hours pass. The sounds below us grow closer. The ones above return more frequently now. They're tightening the net. Garcia, Scart says quietly. If they get me, don't let me become one of them. Been that way. She zips up the scarf. 50 years we finish together. We'll be that way 50 more. Nobody's becoming anything, I tell him firmly. We hold position, we stay alive, we wait for rescue. And if rescue doesn't come? Zhang asks. Parker answers before I can. Then we make enough noise on our way out to be worth remembering. The first creature bursts through the ice wall so fast we almost miss it. Almost. 4 rifles bark in unison, the sound deafening in the confined space. The thing shatters like frozen glass, its crystalline flesh exploding into deadly shards. Here they come, I announce unnecessarily as more shapes appear in the breach. Make every shot count. The battle becomes a blur of muzzle flashes and freezing flesh. The creatures pour in from both directions now, but the narrow tunnel works in our favor, forcing them to come at us 1 or 2 at a time. Scotts props himself up, firing one-handed. Just like that time on Platform C, he shouts over the gunfire. You got us in trouble then too, I remind him, dropping another hostile. Less talking, Parker snaps. More shooting. Zhang is the first to run dry, switching to his combat knife without hesitation. Parker's rifle clicks empty a minute later, then Scotch's. I fire my last round into a particularly large specimen, watching it explode into frozen shards. Well, Scotch says, drawing his own knife, this is going to suck. That's when we hear it, the beautiful sound of cutting torches above us. In here, I shout as loudly as I can. 4 survivors in the maintenance tunnel. The rescue takes another hour. By then we've lost Zhang. He died holding off 3 of them with just a combat knife, buying time for the rescue team to cut through. The rest of us are hypothermic, dehydrated, and half dead. But we're alive. You look like hell, Rivera says as they pull us out. All of you. You should see the other guys, Scotch manages through chattering teeth. Later in medical, Walsh stops by our beds. Good work staying alive down there. The mining operations never stopped, even with all that damage. Corporate's pleased. Corporate's always pleased as long as the uranium flows, Parker mutters, but not loud enough for Walsh to hear. I look at my surviving squad members. Scotch, cracking jokes despite his injuries. Parker, already planning our next patrol route. We've lost good people. Zhang's empty bed speaks volumes. But we're still here, still holding the line. Outside, the darkness holds its secrets, and the ice keeps its mysteries. The creatures are getting smarter, more organized, but so are we. Adaptation goes both ways on Frost 7. Get some rest, I tell my team. Tomorrow we start again, because that's been that way 50 years, they finish with me. We'll be that way 50 more. But as I drift off to sleep, I can't help but wonder, which will last longer, us or the endless ice we guard? Then I remember the first rule of Frost 7 and let the question freeze with all the others. Corporate's coming. Rivera drops this bomb during our morning briefing, her helmet off despite the warning klaxons of an approaching storm. The announcement hits the room like a physical force, silencing even the usual dark humor. Full inspection, Walsh elaborates, his face grim. They want to evaluate our operational efficiency after the losses from last month's coordinated attacks. Last month? Has it really only been a month since we lost Zhang and 3 other squads? Since the creatures showed us just how intelligent they've become? Time moves differently on Frost 7, marked only by shift changes and attack patterns. Garcia, Scotch, Walsh continues. Your squad will handle Platform B during the inspection. Corporate likes that one. It's got the best production numbers. Lucky us, Scotch mutters. His side still bothers him in the cold, but he's back on full duty. You adapt, or you die on Frost 7. They think they'll bring coffee? Real coffee? Focus, I tell him, but I'm smiling behind my faceplate. Parker, what's the status on the new defense turrets? Online but untested, she responds, checking data on her HUD. Engineering says they should handle the cold better than the old models. Of course, they said that about the last batch too. The mining equipment beneath our feet thrums with its usual intensity, pumping uranium from the planet's core. At least that part of the operation is still running smoothly. The creatures seem to have pulled back since their big push, which makes everyone nervous. They never retreat without a reason. Movement on the perimeter, the sensor operator announces. Standard patrol pattern. They're staying just outside turret range. They're learning, Parker observes. Testing our responses, watching our patterns. Above your pay grade, Marine, Walsh reminds her, but there's no real heat in it. We've all noticed the changes in their behavior. We just don't talk about it. First rule of Frost 7. The corporate shuttle arrives 6 hours later, cutting through the eternal darkness like a falling star. It lands on Platform A, disgorging a group of figures in pristine environmental suits that have clearly never seen combat. Remember, Rivera briefs us. They want to see efficiency, not heroics. Standard responses only, no helmet breaks during their inspection. Madam? Scotch asks, with mock innocence. Should we tell them about the time Garcia collapsed the mining platform to stop an attack? Only if you want to spend the next month on latrine duty, I warn him. The inspection starts with the usual bureaucratic nonsense. Production reports, efficiency metrics, casualty statistics. The corporate types move through our facility like they're touring a factory, not a frontline position, in an endless war. That's when the proximity alarms start screaming. Multiple contacts, the sensor operator shouts. They're coming in fast, bigger signatures than usual. Of course they pick now to attack, Rivera sighs. All units, combat positions, try not to die in front of the shareholders. The creatures hit us from 3 directions, just like last time, but something's different. They're larger, more heavily armored with ice. The new defense turrets barely scratch them. Garcia, Walsh barks over the comm. Get those corporate suits to the secure bunker. Scotch, Parker, hold that line. I move to escort our visitors, but they're already rushing toward Platform B, exactly where the largest concentration of hostiles is gathering. No, wait, I shout. That area's not secure. Too late. The creatures breach the outer wall just as the corporate team reaches the platform. I've never seen them move this fast, this purposefully, like they knew exactly when to hit us. Protect that platform, Walsh orders. We lose those suits, we lose our funding. My squad moves as one, falling into the familiar rhythm of combat. Scotch takes high ground with his rifle, picking off the larger threats. Parker works crowd control with precise bursts. I push forward, trying to reach the corporate team before the creatures do. The suits are panicking, of course. They've never seen the creatures up close, never understood what we're really fighting out here. One of them has already removed his helmet, gasping in the thin air as terror overwhelms his training. "Keep that seal," I yell, but it's too late. The cold takes him first, then the creatures take what's left. "Garcia, status," Rivera demands. 4 corporate suits still alive, I report, dropping 2 runners with quick bursts, trying to reach the security doors but we're cut off. "Hold position," Walsh commands. "Relief team is inbound. Corporate protection is priority 1. Scotch's laugh crackles through the comm. "Since when are suits more important than uranium?" "Since they sign our paychecks," Parker reminds him, taking down a particularly large hostile that was trying to flank us. The battle stretches on. The creatures seem endless, pouring through the breach like a frozen tide. We lose another suit to the cold, and a third to a lucky strike that cracks his faceplate. The remaining 2 finally start following orders, staying close and keeping sealed. "Running low on ammo," Scotch reports. "These new ones don't go down easy." He's right. Their ice armor absorbs our standard rounds like they're nothing. We have to hit the same spot multiple times to cause any damage. "Fall back to secondary positions," Walsh orders. "Platform B is lost. Repeat, Platform B is lost." The corporate suits don't take that well. One of them starts yelling about production quotas and shareholder value. The other just stares through his faceplate at the endless horde of creatures, finally understanding what we face every day. "Welcome to Frost 7, Parker tells them as we retreat, "where the uranium flows and the questions don't." Hours later, after we've sealed the breach and counted our losses, Walsh calls us all together. The surviving corporate suits stand off to one side, their pristine suits now stained with ice and worse. "Production will resume within 24 hours, Walsh announces. "Corporate has approved emergency funding for platform repairs and increased defenses." "They finally understand what we're dealing with?" Scotch asks. The senior suit steps forward, his face pale but composed. "We understand that this facility is essential to humanity's energy needs. The uranium must flow regardless of cost." "Been that way 50 years, Rivera says quietly. "Will be that way 50 more, the suit finishes, surprising us all. "We'll have new defense turrets and reinforced barriers shipped in by the end of the month. Until then, hold the line." They leave an hour later, their shuttle vanishing into the darkness. We watch it go from our posts, helmets off despite regulations. The cold helps us remember what's real. "Think they'll actually send us better equipment?" Parker asks. "Does it matter?" I respond. "We'll hold either way. It's what we do." The mining equipment rumbles beneath our feet, already back to full operation. The creatures gather at the edge of our floodlights, testing our new defensive positions. "Tomorrow we'll start rebuilding Platform B. The uranium must flow." "Just another day in paradise," Scotch quips, lighting one of Rivera's precious cigarettes. We laugh because it's better than screaming, because that's what you do on Frost 7. You laugh, you fight, you hold the line. And you don't ask questions. Been that way 50 years, will be that way 50 more. "New equipment's here," Scotch announces, his voice flat despite what should be good news. "Want to bet how long it lasts this time?" We're watching the supply shuttle land through the reinforced windows of Platform A. The corporate inspection last month has at least produced tangible results. 3 shipments of upgraded defense systems in as many weeks. Not that it matters much. The creatures adapt faster than our technology can keep up. 5 days, Parker bets, her helmet off as usual during quiet moments. The last batch made it 4. 2 days, Rivera counters, joining us at the window. They're getting better at breaking our toys. I keep my prediction to myself, watching the loading crews scramble to unload the shuttle before the next attack. They've gotten more efficient at it. They have to be. The creatures always seem to know when we're most vulnerable. "Garcia?" Walsh's voice crackles through my comm. "Your squad's up for testing the new turrets. Try not to break these ones too quickly." "No promises, sir," I respond. They started it. The new turrets are impressive, I'll give corporate that. Bigger barrels, better cold weather servos, supposedly improved targeting systems. The engineers are practically giddy as they explain the upgrades. These babies can track multiple targets simultaneously, one of them boasts, patting the turret's housing. And the new ammunition is designed specifically for... The proximity alarm cuts him off. "Multiple contacts," the sensor operator announces. "Big ones, coming in fast." "Sir, of course they are," Scotch sighs, checking his weapon. "Can't let us enjoy the new toys for even an hour." "All units, combat positions," Walsh orders. "Let's see what these new turrets can do." The creatures emerge from the darkness like always, but there's something different about them. Their ice armor is thicker, more structured, almost like they've been practicing. "Hold your fire," I command my squad. "Let the turrets get first crack at them." The new weapons roar to life, their improved targeting systems tracking the approaching horde with mechanical precision. The first volley tears into the creature's ranks, shattering ice and flesh with devastating effect. For about 30 seconds, they're adapting, Parker shouts. "Look at their formation." She's right. The creatures are moving differently, using the larger ones as mobile cover, letting their ice armor absorb the turret's fire. They've never shown this level of tactical coordination before. "So much for 5 days, Scotch quips, opening fire as they reach our perimeter. "Think corporate will warranty these?" The battle falls into its familiar rhythm, but with a desperate edge. The creatures press forward with unprecedented determination, sacrificing dozens of their own to advance a few meters at a time. "Platform C is breached," someone shouts over the general comm. "They're inside the facility." "Garcia, take your squad and secure that breach," Walsh orders. "Rivera, maintain perimeter defense. Everyone else, fall back to secondary positions." We move through the facility's corridors at combat pace, passing frightened mining crews being evacuated to the secure bunkers. The drills never stop, though. Uranium production continues even during the worst attacks. "Contact front," Parker calls out, just as we round the corner to Platform C. The creatures have evolved again. The ones inside the facility are smaller, faster, adapted for enclosed spaces. Their ice armor is sleeker, and they move with an almost liquid grace. "I really hate it when they learn new tricks," Scotch mutters, dropping 2 of them with precise bursts. "Less complaining, more shooting," I remind him, pushing forward toward the breach. That's when we see it. They're not just attacking randomly. They're targeting specific systems, ripping out power conduits and communication lines with horrible precision. They're isolating us, Parker realizes, cutting us off section by section. She's right. Platform C's main systems are already dark, and the backup generators are failing. The creatures have learned our infrastructure, learned how to hurt us most effectively. "Fall back to the security doors," I order. "We need to contain this," but the security doors aren't responding. The creatures have already destroyed the control systems. We're trapped in Platform C with them, watching as they methodically destroy everything we've built. "Anyone else missing the good old days?" Scotch asks, reloading his last magazine. "When they just tried to kill us instead of outsmarting us?" "Shut up and help me with this," Parker snaps, trying to manually override a door control. The override works, but not how we expected. Emergency bulkheads slam down throughout the platform, dividing it into containment sections. Standard protocol for catastrophic breaches. "Well," I say into the sudden quiet of our sealed section, "this is familiar. At least we're not in the maintenance tunnels this time," Scotch offers. The creatures test the bulkheads, their claws leaving deep scratches in the reinforced metal. But they don't press the attack. Instead, they just wait. They're learning patience too, Parker observes. That's not terrifying at all. Hours pass. The emergency lights flicker as backup power systems fail one by one. The mining equipment below us groans as it automatically shifts to minimal operation mode. We can hear the creatures moving through other sections of the platform, but they leave us alone in our little pocket of safety. They're hurting us, I realize suddenly, containing us while they disable the facility piece by piece. Not bad for mindless monsters, Scotch says. Think they'll accept our surrender? You really want to find out what they do with prisoners? Parker asks. The answer comes through our emergency comm channel, Walsh's voice distorted by clear enough. All units fall back to Central Command. Repeat, all units fall back. We are initiating Protocol 0. Protocol 0, the nuclear option. Overloading the reactor cores to deny the facility to the enemy. It's been theoretically possible for 50 years, but no one ever thought we'd have to use it. Copy that, I respond. Just one problem, sir. We're sealed in Platform C with no way out. Working on that, Rivera's voice cuts in. Just try not to die before we reach you. The rescue, when it comes, is appropriately explosive. Rivera's team cuts through the bulkheads with mining charges, creating an escape route back to Central Command. Miss us? She asks as we run through the breach. Like a frozen hole in the head, Scotch replies. The facility is in chaos. Half the platforms are dark, their systems destroyed by the creature's methodical attack. The other half are barely holding on, their defenses strained to breaking point. All personnel prepare for emergency evacuation, Walsh announces over the general comm. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Later, in Central Command, we watch as the evacuation ships arrive. Mining crews and support staff are loaded first, then non-essential combat personnel. Through it all, the creatures just watch, content to let us run. They're learning, Parker says quietly. Learning and adapting. How long before they follow us to the next facility, the next world? Above our pay grade, Rivera reminds her, but her voice lacks conviction. I look out at the darkness beyond our walls, at the shapes moving just beyond the floodlights. They've won this round, forced us to abandon 50 years of mining and fighting and dying. But humanity needs its uranium, and there are other sites, other facilities. Been that way 50 years, Scotch says, lighting his last cigarette. It'll be that way 50 more, we all finish, but the words ring hollow now. The creatures watch us leave, their ice-blue forms motionless in the eternal night. They've learned patience, learned strategy, learned to think. I wonder what else they'll learn in the next 50 years. But that's against the first rule of Frost 7, so I keep the question to myself and board the evacuation ship. The uranium must flow, even if we have to find it somewhere else. Just another day in the cores. The evacuation order was a lie. 3 hours after non-essential personnel cleared out, Walsh called all remaining combat units to the command center. His face was grim behind his faceplate as he delivered the real orders from corporate. We're to hold the main reactor section at all costs, he announced. The uranium must flow. That was 6 hours ago. Now my squad is dug in around Reactor Complex 2, listening to the sounds of combat echo through the dying facility. Half our platforms are dark, systems methodically destroyed by the creature's organized attacks. But the reactors keep humming, keep processing the precious uranium that humanity apparently can't live without. Contact, North Corridor, Parker reports calmly. She's got her helmet off like most of us do now. If we're going to die here, we want to see it coming with our own eyes. Let them come, Scotch responds from his elevated position. His wounds from last month are fully healed, just in time for what might be our last stand. Getting tired of waiting. The creatures emerge from the darkness with that liquid grace they've developed. Their ice armor gleams under the emergency lighting, reflecting our own grim faces back at us. They've learned to use our floodlights against us, learned to move in ways that confuse our targeting systems. Focus fire on the big ones, I order, though my squad hardly needs the reminder anymore. Don't let them establish a foothold. The battle flows like frozen molasses. The creatures probe our defenses methodically, testing each section before committing to an attack. They've learned patience, learned strategy. Sometimes I catch myself admiring their evolution before remembering what they do to the people they take. Running low on ammo, Parker announces after another wave breaks against our position. Maybe 20 minutes of sustained fire left. 10 minutes here, Scotch adds. Should have packed more bullets, Rivera. I call over the comm. What's your status? Static answers me. Her squad was defending Reactor 1 last we heard. The silence from that section speaks volumes. Garcia, Walsh's voice crackles through the interference. Status report. Holding Reactor 2, I respond. Barely. Lost contact with Rivera's squad. Ammunition critical. Understood. His voice is steady despite the sounds of combat in the background. Corporate's sending a relief force. We just have to hold until they arrive. Scotch laughs, a harsh sound in the thin air. They said that on Frost 2 as well, and Frost 3, and Frost 4. He's right. We've all heard the stories. Each facility lost the same way, overwhelmed by creatures that keep getting smarter, keep adapting faster than we can. But the uranium must flow. Multiple contacts. Parker's warning snaps me back to the present. They're rushing all sectors. The creatures hit us like a frozen tidal wave. Their coordination is perfect, each group supporting the others, using their specialized forms to maximum effect. The smaller, faster ones dart in to destroy vital systems, while the larger ones absorb our fire. Fall back to the reactor core, I order as our outer defenses crumble. Maintain containment protocols. We retreat, step by step, making them pay for every meter. Scotch runs dry first, switching to his sidearm without missing a beat. Parker's rifle clicks empty a minute later. My own ammo counter flashes red. Ideas? Scotch asks as we back into the reactor control room. Preferably ones that don't end with us becoming ice sculptures. I look around at the reactor controls, at the massive power readings on the displays. The uranium processing never stops, not even during an attack. The facilities are designed that way, automated systems that keep running no matter what. Garcia? Walsh's voice cuts through the static. New estimate 3 hours. We don't have 3 minutes, I tell him, watching the creatures gather outside the control room. They're not rushing us anymore. They know we're trapped. Hold as long as you can, he orders. The uranium must flow. We all finish with him. The company motto might as well be carved into our bones at this point. The creatures begin their final push. We go hand to hand when the ammunition runs out. Combat knives against crystalline claws. Parker takes down 3 before a lucky strike cracks her faceplate. Scotch covers her retreat, buying time with her life as she seals her suit. That's when I notice something odd about their attack pattern. They're not trying to destroy the reactor controls like they did on the other platforms. They're being careful, almost protective. They want it intact, I realize aloud. They're not just attacking anymore. They're taking over. Parker looks at me, understanding dawning in her eyes. The uranium. They're not just drawn to it, they're... First rule of Frost 7, Scotch reminds us, bleeding but still fighting, don't ask questions. He's right. Questions don't matter anymore. What matters is that humanity needs this uranium, needs these reactors, and we're the last line of defense. Parker, I say, making a decision. Remember Protocol 0. Her eyes widen. That's crazy. The containment breach would... Better than letting them have it, I cut her off. Better than finding out why they want it. The creatures press closer, their ice-blue forms filling the doorway. They seem to sense what we're planning. Their attacks become more frantic, less coordinated. Do it, Scotch says, understanding in his eyes. Been that way 50 years. Will be that way 50 more. Parker finishes, her fingers flying over the reactor controls. The override sequence is designed to be simple enough to activate even in the middle of combat. The reactor's hum changes pitch, becomes something angry and unstable. All units, fall back to minimum safe distance, I broadcast on all channels. Reactor 2 is going critical. Repeat, Reactor 2 is going critical. The creatures realize their mistake too late. They try to stop us, but Parker's already locked in the sequence. The reactor's failsafes scream as they're bypassed one by one. It's been an honor, Scotch says, taking position by the door. Try not to die too quickly. You too, old friend, I tell him, helping Parker barricade the controls. Even hell. The next few minutes are a blur of combat and warnings. The creatures throw themselves at our position with desperate strength, but we hold. We hold because that's what Trevin Marines do. We hold because the uranium must flow, or in this case, must be denied to the enemy. The reactor goes critical, just as our defenses finally break. The last thing I see is the creatures backing away, their ice-blue forms illuminated by the growing light of atomic fire. Then everything goes white. And the questions don't matter anymore. Been that way 50 years? Will be that way 50 more. Or maybe not. I wake up in medical, which is the first surprise. The second surprise is that I'm alive at all. Welcome back to the land of the living. Rivera's voice comes from somewhere to my left. You've been out for 3 days. My throat feels like I've been gargling ice shards, but I managed to croak out, Parker? Scotch. Parker made it. She's already back on duty. Stubborn kid, Scotch. She trails off and I close my eyes, another name for the list of those the ice has taken. The reactor? I ask, though I already know the answer. The uranium must flow. Contained, Rivera confirms. The emergency systems managed to prevent a full meltdown. Corporate's pleased, says your actions saved billions in equipment. Of course they are. Never mind the lives lost, the sacrifices made. As long as the uranium keeps flowing, corporate stays happy. The creatures pulled back after the reactor incident. They're still out there, watching, learning, but they're not attacking anymore. Not yet. I try to sit up, fighting against the weakness in my limbs. Rivera helps me, her own movements stiff from recent combat. How many did we lose? Too many, she says simply, but we held. The facility is operational, minus a few platforms. Mining operations resumed yesterday, because that's what matters in the end. Not the dead, not the taken, not the questions we're not supposed to ask. Just the endless flow of uranium from this frozen hell to humanity's hungry reactors. Walsh visits later, after I've had time to process everything. He looks older, more worn, but his eyes are still sharp behind his faceplate. Good work out there, he says without preamble. Good work out there, he says, without preamble. Until they learn to counter those too? I respond, but without bitterness. It's just a fact of life on Frost 7. That's not your concern anymore, he tells me. You're being reassigned. Transfer orders came in this morning. That gets my attention. Sir, they're setting up a new facility, Frost 8. Bigger uranium deposits, if you can believe it. They need experienced personnel to get it running. Same enemy. He shrugs. First rule of Frost 7? Don't ask questions, I finish with him. Been that way 50 years. Will be that way 50 more, he confirms. You ship out in a week. Take Parker with you. She's earned it. Guess they found more uranium. Humanity's got to keep the lights on somehow, I respond, removing my own helmet to feel the artificial cold of the facility. You in? She laughs, a sound with actual humor in it. Like I'd let you face another frozen hellhole alone. Someone's got to keep you alive. That's what Scotch used to say, I note quietly. We share a moment of silence for our fallen friend. Somewhere out in the darkness, the creatures watch and wait, learning from every encounter. Maybe they'll follow us to Frost 8. Maybe they're already there. But those are questions we're not supposed to ask. You know what Scotch would say right now? Parker asks, lighting one of his old cigarettes. She's been carrying them since we lost him. This is going to suck. That too. But he'd say we've got a job to do. The uranium must flow. She's right, of course. That's what it always comes down to. The endless cycle of mining and fighting and dying, all to keep humanity's reactors running. The questions don't matter, the cost doesn't matter, only the mission matters. 1 week, I say, watching the smoke freeze in elaborate patterns before dissipating. Think they've got real coffee at Frost 8? Probably not, she replies with a grim smile. But I bet they've got plenty of ice zombies. Wouldn't have it any other way. Outside our reinforced walls, the creatures continue their patient vigil. Maybe they're planning their next attack. Maybe they're still learning from the reactor incident. Maybe they're wondering why we keep coming back to these frozen worlds, keep fighting these endless battles. But those are questions we're not supposed to ask. We just do our job, hold the line, keep the uranium flowing, because that's what Treffin Marines do. Been that way 50 years, will be that way 50 more. And if sometimes, in the quiet moments between battles, we catch ourselves staring into the ice and wondering, well, that's just another secret we keep in this endless frozen night. Keep your helmet sealed, rookie. The words echo across Frost 8's landing pad as I watch another batch of fresh faces stumble off the transport. Their environmental suits are still pristine, unmarked by combat or ice. They stare at the massive mining facility rising before them, just like I did a year ago on Frost 7. Sir, one of them protests, already reaching for his helmet seals. But I saw some of the veterans. You'll earn your helmet breaks, Parker cuts in beside me, her face exposed to the brutal cold. The scars from Frost 7 stand out starkly against her frost-nipped skin. Until then, stay sealed. It's strange being on the other side of this conversation. A year ago, I was the rookie getting these same warnings. Now I'm the veteran with the 1,000-yard stare, watching another generation of Treffin Marines learn the harsh realities of life on a frost world. Movement on the perimeter, Rivera announces over the comm. She transferred with us, saying something about keeping us out of trouble. Looks like our old friends followed us here. Through the swirling ice particles, I can see them. The same translucent blue forms, the same crystalline armor. Maybe they're the same ones from Frost 7. Maybe they're something new. Those are questions we don't ask. All units, combat positions, I order, watching the rookies scramble to their assigned places. Standard response pattern. Let's show these new arrivals how we do things. The creatures emerge from the darkness with familiar grace. They're already probing our defenses, learning our patterns. The cycle begins again. Garcia! Walsh's voice crackles through the comm. He stayed behind on Frost 7, but his final advice still rings in my ears. The uranium must flow. Status report. Holding the lines, sir, I respond, dropping 2 runners with practiced bursts. Teaching the next generation. The battle falls into its familiar rhythm. The rookies spray and pray while the veterans pick their shots. Parker calls out targets with mechanical precision, her voice steady despite the chaos. Rivera coordinates our defense like she's done it 1,000 times before. Maybe she has. Maybe we all have. Sir? One of the rookies, Armstrong, and isn't that a punch to the gut, calls out during a lull. What are these things? Where did they come from? First rule of frost operations, kid, I tell him, remembering when I asked those same questions. Don't ask questions. Been that way. 50 years, the veterans finish with me. Will be that way 50 more. The mining equipment beneath our feet thrums with its endless rhythm, pulling uranium from this new frozen hell. Different world, same mission. The uranium must flow. Later, in the mess hall, I write a letter home while the rookies compare their first battle stories. Parker sits beside me, her helmet off like always, reading Scotch's old copy of The Art of War. Some of the pages are stained with frost. Dear Dad, I write you asked why I volunteered for another tour. Why I chose to come to Frost 8 after what happened on Frost 7. The truth is, I didn't sign up for this. Any of this. None of us did. But we're here because someone has to be. Someone has to hold the line, keep the uranium flowing, face the endless night. The rookies looking at me now, their eyes still bright with questions. They remind me of myself a year ago. They remind me why we do this. We don't do it for the combat pay. We don't do it for the glory. There's no glory in a frozen hell where your closest friends disappear into the darkness. We do it because humanity needs its uranium, needs its power, needs its light. And if that means we stand guard on these frozen worlds, facing enemies we don't understand and aren't supposed to question, then that's what we'll do. Because we're Treffin Marines, and this is our duty. Tell Mom I'm safe. Tell her the stories about me are exaggerated. Tell her I'm making a difference. But don't tell her about the ice in my dreams, or the blue shadows that move like liquid grace, or the questions we're not supposed to ask. Don't tell her that sometimes, in the quiet moments between battles, I think I understand why they take off their helmets. Because that's not what matters. What matters is that we're here, they're here, and the uranium keeps flowing. Been that way 50 years, will be that way 50 more. Love, Juan. I seal the letter and look up at the reinforced ceiling, knowing that somewhere beyond it the creatures are watching, learning, waiting. They followed us from Frost 7, or maybe they were already here. Another question we're not supposed to ask. Ready for patrol? Parker asks, closing her book. I nod, sealing my helmet. Always. Someone's got to show the rookies how it's done. Think these ones will last longer than our batch did? Better, I say, checking my rifle's charge. I'm getting tired of writing condolence letters. We step out into the eternal night, into the familiar cold that bites even through our suits. The rookies follow, their movements still uncertain, their questions still burning behind their faceplates. The creatures watch from beyond the floodlights, their ice-blue forms shifting like frozen smoke. They're learning us already, adapting to our patterns. The cycle continues. But that's okay. We'll adapt too. We'll hold the line, keep the uranium flowing, train the next generation of Marines to do the same. Because that's what we do. That's who we are. I reach up and unlock my helmet seals, letting the brutal cold hit my face. The rookies gasp, but Parker just nods in understanding. Sometimes you need to feel the battlefield without filters. Sometimes you need to remember what's real. Welcome to Frost 8, I tell the rookies as the darkness shivers with movement. Try not to die. The uranium must flow. Been that way 50 years. Will be that way 50 more. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it a lot. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. Feel free to comment and share this story too. It helps the channel grow. Let's make this channel huge together.